You're driving home after a long day at work. The coffee maker was broken, so you muscled through the day with no caffeine. The copy machine, well, you don't even want to talk about that. And some customer called at 4:59 with the most urgent emergency situation in history. Well, at least according to them. Now, all you want to do is go home, slip on some comfy sweats, and forget that this day ever happened. And then you're presented with the absolute last thing your day needed. Having to hunt for a parking space. Sure, you find one 3 buildings away, and your frustration level is up to here. We're talking parking, and this is Renter Confidential. Today, we're talking about that long-time Olympic sport, competitive parking. When it comes to renting an apartment, parking options can play a significant role in the overall experience. In fact, according to a recent study, nearly 70% of renters consider parking essential as they use their vehicles 5 or more times per week. On a more personal note, I've seen people skip the property tour altogether just because they believed their car wouldn't fit in the parking space that came with their apartment. They didn't even bother to measure. I've also seen people skip the tour because too many cars were parked on the street around the apartment community. When I called and asked them why they never showed up, they said, "Where will all our guests park?" While parking space in general is important, you'll have to consider the different types of parking that may be available. In addition, changes in renter behavior have made the parking issue even more critical. So what are some of the parking options typically available on rental properties? First up is reserved parking. This is where residents can reserve a specific parking spot for their use only. This can be a great option for those who want the peace of mind of always having a spot available to them. However, it comes at a premium price, and there may be limited spaces available. In fact, 60% of all renters are willing to pay $25 to $75 more per month to get a dedicated, reserved, mine and nobody else can use it parking space. But the value of these spaces comes with a huge caveat. The option is only good as long as the landlord or property manager has the ability to easily enforce it. And even if the property manager is willing to tow the offending vehicle from your space, it may be an hour or more before the tow truck even arrives, depending on traffic and other factors. Next, we have unreserved parking. This is where residents can park in any available spot that isn't reserved. While this option is often included in the cost of rent, it can also be frustrating as the renter will have to engage in the daily ritual of finding the best parking spot they can. Every day. And as I pointed out in the opener to this episode, this frustration level can ratchet up even higher during peak hours of parking demand, especially if the space they find is far from their apartment. Unfortunately, you can't just call dibs on the space you want, as Chief Wallace Bowden from Chicago Fire found out. If you want your parking space, you have to fight for it every day. But other people are in need of that same space too. In addition to whether parking is reserved or not, covered parking is another option that many renters look for. This can protect their cars from the elements, which is especially important for those who live in areas with severe weather conditions. The weather conditions of concern are typically hail, high temperatures, and snow. Hail has scratched paint, dented hoods, and even broken windshields. Hailstorms are relatively frequent in the United States. According to NOAA's Severe Storms database, there were nearly 5,400 hailstorms in 2019. Up next, sunlight. Ongoing exposure to direct sunlight can damage your vehicle's interior surfaces. In fact, according to State Farm Insurance, interior surfaces can reach temperatures over 195 degrees. These high temperatures crack dashboards and cause those surfaces to fade. not to mention the discomfort of sitting on a hot seat during a toasty summer day. Lastly, snow can also damage your car. According to our friends at Napa Auto Parts, the weight of snow can dent your vehicle, and snow accumulated around your wheels can get into your braking system, causing rust. You'd have to get the snow off your car eventually, so why not let the covered parking handle all of that for you? Covered parking is also typically more expensive, and there may be limited spaces available, but the benefit of avoiding vehicle damage may well be worth it. At this point, we're going to take a quick break here for our sponsor, Rental Secrets. This book has helped people save hundreds on their rent, and the link is in the show notes. Here's the trailer for this powerful book. America is in the grip of a housing crisis. There's evidence of it in nearly every city. 50% of U.S. households are having difficulty paying rent. And prices? Well, prices are on the rise. Frustration has set in for those trying to make ends meet, and searching for a new place can be a daunting task. It can seem overwhelming. People believe that landlords have all the power. After all, they have what you need. But it isn't true. Yes, you heard correctly. It is not true. You have more power than you think. Inside the new book, Rental Secrets, you'll learn how to reduce your rent. Just imagine having a lower rent payment. Get better value for your money. Paying rent is a struggle. Shouldn't you get more out of each payment? How to negotiate with the right people. Who has the real power to negotiate? Take control of rent renewal conversations. After all, it's your money. And even how to get free rent. Yes, it is absolutely true. Free rent is real, and you can get it. All this and so much more is in Rental Secrets. Get your copy today at Amazon.com. And we're back. Even if you have designated covered parking, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're out of the woods just yet. There was one property I managed that shared a driveway with 4 neighboring duplexes, each one owned by a different person. As a result of the ever-increasing local rent, there were lots of roommates and cars attached to those duplexes. This resulted in cars being double parked, which made it difficult for my residents to get in and out of their parking spaces. In an effort to resolve the situation, I contacted local code enforcement, the fire department, the police department, and the property owners. None of them were keen to take any action relative to the parking situation, but they all certainly knew about it. The last option is street parking. This is where residents park their vehicles on the street, hopefully somewhere near their building. This is by far the cheapest parking option, and in crowded urban areas, it is often the only option. Not only is it the most competitive option, but it is completely beyond the control of your property manager. There's absolutely no way to know what parking spots will be available until you drive around looking for them. And what you do find may be some distance from your apartment. In fact, people who don't even live on your street may very well be parking in your preferred parking spot, especially on trash days. So you'll have to be prepared to get your steps in for the day, every day. You'll also have to pay attention to the parking signs on the street, and some of those signs can be confusing. Like on The Golden Girls when Betty White's character, Rose Nyland, described how confusing opposite side of the street parking was in St. Olaf. Moreover, street parking likely increases the chances that you'll be a victim of theft and vandalism. Some in San Francisco have resorted to putting signs on their cars informing thieves that the doors are unlocked and there's nothing inside to steal, so please don't break the windows. When looking to move, it's a really good idea to check out the neighborhood at night. That way you can determine the amount of parking available and how comfortable you are in the neighborhood at that time of day. So how do these parking options affect a renter's overall experience? Well, the answer is complicated. Some residents may be willing to pay more for reserved parking if it means they have a guaranteed spot close to their building. Or covered parking may be more important to prevent damage to their car. Others may be happy to save money by relying on unreserved or street parking, even if it means walking a bit further or risking vandalism. And of course, the more cars in the household, the more complicated the parking situation will be. Here are a couple of helpful parking strategies. Strategy 1. If you have at least one designated parking space and one vehicle available during the day, don't park it in your parking space. Park it in the most convenient street spot you can find. Then, when your other driver comes home, you have a convenient street parking spot available during peak parking times. Strategy number 2. Maintain great relationships with your neighbors. If any of them have a parking space they aren't using, even temporarily, then you may be able to make arrangements to use it. Here's the takeaway. Don't underestimate the importance of parking and be sure the properties you look at have the parking options you need. Take the time to research and consider the different options available to you. Don't be afraid to ask your property manager for guidance and be sure to visit the property in the evening to really see the true parking situation. And networking with your neighbors may present you with parking options you never knew you had. Thanks for watching Renter Confidential. Happy apartment hunting! When it comes to renting, insider information is the best roommate you can ever have.